And welcome back to the Cooley Jets podcast. Where it was Ben Blessington and Michael Nania. Michael, bit of the mixed bag. I mean, the Jets are 5-2. They beat the Broncos. On the surface, that's all you could ask for. We should be happy right now. But given the injuries that the Jets suffered today and maybe even the way that they played, I haven't really talked to you too much before the podcast, but it seems like you're a little deflated. So how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, it's definitely pretty bittersweet. I mean, on one hand, you're 5-2, you're tied for the second best record in the AFC. You got 4 straight wins, you're 4-0 on the road, all this great stuff, but you can't help but feel a little bit deflated after this game. I mean, with all the big injuries, especially to Breece Hall, who looks like he will probably miss the rest of the season with an ACL. While you're listening to this, you probably know more than we do right now, recording this the night after the game. But yeah, with the
Hey,
injuries,
it could be a sprain.
could be. We did get a break with Zach Wilson, who, speaking of him, not the greatest game for him either. So, there are some reasons that I'm not super amped after this game, but the Jets have had plenty of games like this where they lost and they weren't 5-2. So definitely still great to have the victory, but there are things to figure out going forward.
Yeah, I don't really know what to start with this podcast. I guess we start with Zach, although you alluded to the defense, who I was really impressed with today. I mean, especially in the second half. I know the first half they had a few bad drives, but they really closed things down in the second half. I guess we'll save the defense for later. Let's just start with Zach. Yeah, I mean, not a great game. I mean, it's hard to see without seeing what was going on down the field. And there's nothing that infuriates me more than not seeing the downfield replays. I swear to God, every network does this. After an incompletion, they just show the line of scrimmage, which you've already seen, or they'll show like a replay of Zach after the play or something. Like, can we just see what was going on down the field? Because I think that really explains what was going on. Because look, coming into this game, Denver had one of the best pass defenses. Without Elijah Moore, it wouldn't surprise me if not much was open down the field. And in which case, maybe Zach's performance isn't as bad. But if you were able to see some of those replays and you could see like, oh, look, Braxton Berrios is wide open 40 yards down the field and Zach doesn't hit him, that changes things. And so that was kind of the perception we had last week. You came on the podcast on Friday and we're like, you know what, Zach wasn't as bad as I thought he was from watching the game. It's kind of another one of those games where, okay, we know it wasn't a great game from Zach. He definitely didn't play like well. I thought he had a few nice plays, a few bad plays, and then a bunch of plays where it's hard to tell without the L22. So with that in mind, Michael, what did you make of his performance today?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's always important to go back and watch it. And CBS broadcast team is just not on it today, just not good with the replays, showing us anything we needed to see. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I mean, this one definitely seemed like it was worse than last week. I think just the ball placement was not great on a number of throws, and just the reactions to pressure are nerve wracking. Sometimes holding the ball a little bit too long, trying to do too much. He got very lucky on that near fumble play at the beginning of the game. That was close to being a turnover. So again, it's always pending the all 22, but he seemed pretty reckless and not comfortable in this game. And, last week he did have a couple of good plays to save face at the end of the game. This one, not so much. Obviously, he made, a couple completions near the end, but nothing really too impressive to kind of make up for some of the other mistakes. So we'll see to what degree it looks like he struggled once we rewatch it. But just as of right now, doesn't seem like he's very good, to say the least. And if that is confirmed on the film, then that's back to back games now where he hasn't been great. But granted, they are on the road, tough defenses, a lot of injuries, all those excuses. But at the same time, you do want to see the development and the progression at some point, because there's going to kind of come a time where the Jets can't win by scoring 16 points. They can't win by getting 100 passing yards. So when those games come, Wilson is obviously going to have to be a lot better than he has been these past couple games. So right now, luckily, it hasn't cost the Jets too much, but there's definitely still quite a bit of room for growth for Zach.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with anything you really said there. I mean, I think the only caveat I would give is like, look, this is one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, and then obviously no Elijah Moore. Obviously, the Jets would have liked to have him today. Ironically, this seems like one of the games that he may have had his breakout game in. I mean, Denver has a great pass defense, but when Breece went out, when Corey Davis went out, towards the end of the game, when Mims went out, like when you really needed Elijah Moore, and then he wasn't there. and we'll talk about Elijah a little bit later in this podcast, but yeah, I mean, Zach wasn't great. I think, he had an excellent fourth quarter against Pittsburgh, and overall, I would say, a solid game against Pittsburgh. I thought he had a great game against Miami, even if he didn't light up the box score. The Packers game wasn't. I think the Packers in this game are fairly similar, where it's like not a good game, but did what he needed to win. I think this game was probably slightly better than the Packers game, especially considering the matchup on the road without, AVT, without Corey, without Elijah, without Breece. But yeah, I mean, like, you don't want to be too much of a Zach Wilson truther to the point where you're like excusing every little bad play. He definitely had bad plays in this game, but at the same time, I also feel like I'm not ready to give up on him. I mean, how do you feel about Zach Wilson's development through 4 games that we've seen him this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely way too early to give up on him. I mean, this was essentially the last game of his rookie season, if you consider it was his 17th start. So, I mean, I'm definitely nowhere near even remotely close to give up on him status. But at the same time, I think, it is fair to say, like, first couple of games, I don't think they won, quote unquote, in spite of him. Steelers game, fourth quarter was amazing.
Steelers game, they won because of him.
They needed him to carry them in the fourth quarter. And part of the reason they were in that hole was because he didn't have the greatest start. But when they needed him to come through, he was, yes, he had some tough plays. When they needed him to come through, he definitely was amazing in that fourth quarter. Then Dolphins game, low volume of attempts, had some good defensive run game. But when he did throw the ball, he was extremely efficient, great decisions, great ball placement. He was very solid in that game. One of the most consistent games I've seen from him. But then these last 2 games, again, tougher circumstances and all that. But, Packers game didn't really have too many big time plays. And then, again, separation wasn't great and all that, but not the best ball placement. A couple of throws were a little dangerous. Maybe lucked out that those weren't picked. And then this game, I hate to always say that you have to go back and watch it every single time, but you really do.
It's true, though.
Because when you're watching it live, it's like, first of all, you only watch it one time, the majority of them. You sometimes get replays, but even when you do, sometimes they're not the greatest. So for all intents and purposes, you watch it one time and you're emotional, you're in the game, you're not really watching everything. You can't see the routes. So it's really hard to gauge anything, but it definitely didn't seem like the greatest game, to say the least. The biggest thing that I can say right now without rewatching it is just the reactions to the pressure, I think, can be better. I think there are times where, sometimes he's a little too confident in his ability to, evade tacklers and extend plays, and he puts himself in some really dangerous positions, not just in a ball security sense, but also in a, self-protection sort of sense, because, we want him to be healthy, and a lot of that is on the O-line, but the quarterback also has some control over his own protection, and he puts himself in a lot of situations where not only does he take a hit he doesn't need to, but a lot of really awkward hits with just the way that, he's going backwards, he's spinning. And, granted, it's awesome that he could do that. And it creates a lot of opportunities that Joe Flacco, that a lot of quarterbacks in the league can't create. But right now there's a lot of ugly results out of that. And he's also putting himself in some danger. So I think he can achieve a better balance of, when to pull it out, try to make something happen, and when to just, throw the ball away, live for the next down. Or also, I think, operate from within the pocket, step up instead of stepping out. There was one play where there was a rusher coming off the edge. I think it was a blitz from the slot or something like that. But he did have a tight end there to pick him up, and he could have, stepped up and remained in the pocket. But he's just so confident. He runs towards that guy, and he does beat him to the edge and evade him. But at the same time, you're cutting the field in half. You're making yourself have to throw in the run. You're taking away the options on the backside of the field. So I think there could be some better poise and reaction to the pressure, but we'll see what happens going forward. Hopefully Elijah Vera Tucker is okay. That's a huge one. And the offensive line is, starting to build some continuity with those 5 guys together. So hopefully they can continue to do that. But there's definitely a lot for Zach to learn. But at the same time, it's, this was just the 17th game of his career, essentially one rookie season. So he's got plenty of time.
Isn't this crazy that this is a post-game victory podcast? They've won 4 in a row, Michael, and you sound depressed right now. I mean, like, I get why, and we're gonna get to it in a second. But hey, I mean, they're 5-2. Like, I get everything that you're saying. You didn't say anything that I don't agree with. How do you feel about some of the hero ball plays that Zach makes? Because look, I was at a bar downtown in New York City with a lot of Jets fans, and a lot of times, like when he'll make those plays, and even when he throws it out of bounds, I hear the groans, and I definitely see it on Twitter where it's like, what is he doing? Throw it out of bounds, and it's like part of me is weighing like, look, the end result isn't looking great so far, but like that is the Mahomesian element of him. You know what I mean? Like
But
a
is he
lot of that.
getting those results right
No,
now?
not yet. No, absolutely not. Not yet. But like, don't you understand? Like, don't you agree with me that it's like 20 games into his career with missing 4 starters on that offense? I mean, like, I'm not trying to make it sounds like I'm making excuses for him. I'm just trying to say I think that will always be an element in Zach's game, and you would obviously like to see a higher percentage of success in those plays. We haven't really seen that much this season. We didn't really see that too much last season. We've certainly seen some elements of it. He had one play today where he almost made an amazing throw to Tyler Conklin on 3rd down, but it was a little short. How do you feel about all those plays? Like, because it's like, okay, I guess he could just throw it away immediately. But, he even had some plays where he would make a guy miss. He'd make another guy miss. He'd make another guy miss, and he'd throw it out of bounds. And I saw a lot of Jets fans, including yourself, that'd be angry at him. Why don't you just throw it away immediately? And it's like, well, okay, but that's the quarterback that Zach is. His improvisational ability, his mobility behind the line of scrimmage, like his ability to make those things happen. He hasn't really had anything too positive come out of it outside of escaping sacks. I mean, he's had a few, good plays last year, but what do you make about that element of his game? Because it does seem to be like sometimes he'll take a 20-yard sack and sometimes he'll just make a bunch of guys miss and throw it away. But the hope is that he can develop into the guy that can make a guy miss and hit a 60-yard touchdown. And we haven't seen that too much, but you're hoping you develop into that guy. So what do you make about that hero ball element of Zach Wilson's game? Because we've seen it a little less this season, but this game I think you saw a ton of it when AVT went out. So how do you weigh those types of plays in your evaluation of Zach Wilson?
Yeah, I think it's just always about finding the right time and place to do it because it's always going to be a part of his game. He's never just going to stand in the pocket all day. And you want it to be part of his game because it's what makes him unique. It's where he can add value in places where other quarterbacks can't. He can evade a sack or a pressure that, would be a hit or a throwaway or a dead play for a lot of other quarterbacks, but he can keep that play going and create another opportunity. So you want him to tap into that. But at the same time, there are some plays where you just feel like it isn't totally necessary or he's stringing it out a little bit too much. So it's just about finding that balance. And I think right now he's still really having a little bit of a hard time of finding that balance, but that's only going to come with reps. So I don't think it's something you want to discourage him from doing necessarily and say like never do that because then you're going to eliminate that from his game and limit his upside. But at the same time, I think there can be a little bit of encouragement to, all right, sometimes you could step up in the pocket, sometimes you could throw the ball away immediately if that's the right play. So I think it's just about mastering finding the right time and place to do it because there are some instances where dodging that pressure is really your only option. And I think in those situations, yeah, by all means, go make a play. If it's, stand there and take a sack or try to make something happen, then go right ahead and do it. But I feel like I forget the exact play, but it was earlier in the game. And there was one play where he did do that. He dodged the initial pressure. I think it was a bootleg. There was a guy coming right at him. So, dodge him. Absolutely. Go try to extend the play. But then after that, he held it for about a second and a half. Wasn't really anything there. Then I feel like at that point, good time to throw it away. Then he tried to dodge another guy and he spin it backwards. And now he's 15 yards downfield, almost steps out of bounds, but luckily flicks it away. Plays like that, I feel like are towing it a little too close where that's very risky. And I don't know if it's worth the turnover risk and the health risk to be doing that at this point before he's really proven that he can consistently make those plays outside the pocket because, to this point, he hasn't gotten a ton of great results on those improvised plays. As much as it looks like he's capable of doing that, we haven't really seen much of it, actual productivity out of that. So I think there's some balancing for him to do, but it takes time to do that. So we'll see if he can master it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We haven't really seen the results from Zach's improvisation and mobility, but it's there. I mean, his ability to make sacks or defenders miss and avoid sacks is certainly impressive, but we haven't really seen him be able to translate that into downfield throws or big plays. We've seen it a few times, but maybe not to the level that you were hoping. But at the same time, given the injuries and given the past defense they're facing, you don't want to make too many excuses, but it's understandable to why the Jets offense didn't have a huge day. Certainly the loss of Breece Hall could be massive for this team. I mean, that run he had at the beginning of the game was huge. I mean, obviously the blocking was great, good block by Mims, but you just saw a 220-pound man running 22 miles an hour and just, I mean, dominating. And so I really hope that's not an ACL tear. I'm hoping that maybe it's an ACL sprain or something else. I really didn't. I mean, the way that he was walking off the field and walking to the cart, you never know. People walk off ACLs all the time, but it'd be a really big bummer if he does tear his ACL. So, Michael, I guess, what are your thoughts on that whole situation? And then also at the same time, I mean, not to be, homers here, try to spin it optimistically, but they do have Michael Carter, who going into the draft, you would have just assumed would have been the starting offensive or starting running back. And, he had a nice game and he's certainly a good player. Losing Breece is absolutely massive, though. You can't downplay that. He's the type of guy that you could just ride throughout the entire season if he was healthy and take you to the playoffs. I mean, he's that level of player. So losing him in the sixth game of his career or the seventh game of his career would, it sucks, obviously. So let's just hope that it's not an ACL tear. By the time you're listening to this, you'll probably have a better idea. So just what do you make of that whole situation? And then what do you make of Carter potentially sliding into that number one running back role?
Oh yeah, it's really rough, and honestly, more than anything, that's why I'm a little, not quite as amped after this game. But yeah, he comes in, he has that, huge touchdown run, which turns out to be the only touchdown of the entire game, and the main difference maker of why you won. And then you find this out. It's pretty deflating because he's playing so well recently, and just turning out to be the guy you hoped he would be when you traded up to draft him. And like, I think back to when he was drafted, and I was a little, I wouldn't say critical, but maybe not as, maybe I just had higher standards for the pick, I think, than a lot of other people, just in the sense that, I thought if you're going to take a running back, you want him to be really, really good, not just solid, good running back. In the second round, I thought you're going to take a running back, he's got to be great. And Breece Hall has been absolutely that this season. But, mostly the past few games, he's really elevated to that level, to the type of guy, like you said, where he's just, you feed him the ball and you feel like regardless of if the pass or if the run blocking is great or the passing game is great, he's going to get you yards and he's going to hit those home runs at a very good frequency too. He's going to give you one of those a game that could just change the entire course of the game. So he really has been that player. I mean, I posted this stat on Sunday, but he finishes this season, assuming this is the end, with 5.8 yards, if it is, with 5.8 yards per carry, which is the best in Jets history in a single season with at least 80 carries. So he's that type of guy. He's really special. And I think the home run ability is the biggest thing because, you mentioned it. He had almost 22 miles an hour on this run, 21.87. That's the fastest ball carrier speed in the entire league this season. So quite literally, he is the fastest player in the league to this point so far, carrying the football. So he's very special. And I think, they are lucky to have a good backup in Carter, who, going into the draft and after last season, we all thought that, he was a legitimate RB1 and that they didn't need to draft a running back because they had him. And, he is still that. He's a very good player. He contributes in the pass game. His elusiveness is excellent. His ability to break tackles, make the first man miss, but I think you definitely lose that home run ability because that's the one thing I think Carter isn't great at. He doesn't have the best home run hitting speed. We saw him get caught up to a couple times last year. And even this year, he hasn't really had any huge plays, definitely not to the extent that Hall has had. So I think that's what you're going to lose. But at the same time, I think you still have a guy who you could feed the rock to, and he's going to break tackles. He's going to get you good chunks of yards. And when the blocking's good, he's going to maximize it. So still a guy you could lean on. But at the same time, that home run hitting ability, I think that's what you're going to miss the most.
All right, I gotta say, Michael, when we get to the defense, you better bring the energy here because I understand why you're down in the offense here, and they won, Michael. I mean, the defense really stepped up here. I know we got to talk about the offensive line and the receivers here, but got to bring the energy when we talk about the defense here. Michael, they're 5-2. We didn't see them being 5-2. Come on. Let's talk about the receivers. I mean, without Elijah Moore, obviously, this was the type of game that maybe he would have had a breakout. Ironically enough, we'll see what happens with him. I mean, I'll stick with my guns to what I said Friday. I mean, we got a lot of slander for what I said, but I think the Jets will patch this thing up. I mean, it's something to monitor going forward. It's maybe something that Joe Douglas will keep in the back of his head. We'll honestly, what happens Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday will really be Monday, Wednesday. I guess they have Tuesday off, but what happens Monday and Wednesday in terms of Elijah Moore will be massive. In terms of, does he rejoin the team? Does he apologize to the team? How does he fit back into the team? What's the game plan going into New England? But I think that is a situation that they can resolve, and I think it'll take one big breakout game for him to win over the fans again, and then obviously, at least a meaningful apology or some conversation with his teammates to win over the team again. I don't think that situation is unresolvable, but it's certainly something to monitor because you can't have some guy like that, a player like that who's that selfish and that, I mean, what, he played 17 games in his career and they won 3 in a row and he requested a trade. Like, I don't want it to come off like I'm pro Elijah Moore here. I think he did absolutely a selfish and stupid thing by requesting a trade this week, but I do think there's a road back from it. Solid came out on Friday, the day after our podcast, and was like, we're not trading him. I believe him. I don't think they just trade him because I think they know the potential that he has. I think they know that if they trade him to another team, he's going to be a great receiver. But I also think that he hasn't had necessarily the production to get what he's worth. Like it's a weird situation where that he's worth a first round pick potentially, but he hasn't played like it. So nobody's going to offer him a first round pick. So he'll be a Jet. We'll see how that situation resolves itself. They could have used him today, but without him, they still won. Berrios had a nice game. Mims had a nice block in that Breece Hall touchdown. Outside of that, he had a penalty and a drop. Corey Davis went out in the first half and didn't return, but it doesn't seem like it's too serious. Garrett Wilson hasn't really done. I mean, Garrett Wilson's had some nice plays since that Cleveland game, but he hasn't had that insane breakout game since Cleveland. I mean, I think he had a few nice plays, and last week I didn't think he was very good. This week I'll have to go back and watch the All-22. A few nice plays, but he's been a guy that hasn't necessarily taken over the way that you maybe would have thought after the Cleveland game. And then Jeff Smith got a lot of Elijah Moore reps. I didn't really see him do anything with it. So what did you think of the receiver performance? I mean, again, it's hard to see without watching the All-22, but when you look at the weapons that Zach had, I guess you can lump the tight ends into this. I mean, what did you think of their performance and how they were helping Zach out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you said, you got to kind of see the All-22 angle to really know, but I don't know. It seemed like a mixed bag. I feel like Packers game, it clearly they were getting clamped up the whole game. And then that was confirmed when you rewatched it. There was not a lot there, especially Garrett Wilson had a really tough time with Alexander last week. But in this game, I feel like there were a few replays that we got where there might have been something there if Zach was a little more confident to just rip it into a tight window. It's just so hard to tell without rewatching it. So I know that's like kind of a little bit of a cop out to sit here and say that, but I don't know. I feel like other people will sit here and talk about it like, oh, here's everything that happened. Here's my take on everything, but you don't really know until you rewatch it. So I'm not going to sit here and say things that I can't completely confirm. So yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, but in terms of Elijah Moore, yeah, this definitely would have been, the way things played out. If he just, stayed quiet, this could have been his game. They could have fed him the ball on screens, on end arounds. Instead, we got Denzel Mims out here catching screens. That could have been you, Elijah. It could have been you. But so we'll see what happens. I think it's gonna be an awkward situation from a fan's perspective if/when he comes back out there and plays, which the way things are looking, he's probably playing this week. It's gonna be an awkward situation, and I'm sure for the team as well. I mean, likely there will be a large apology a part of it. So it's a very weird situation. We'll see how it plays out. But it seems like he is going to be back out there just with the way that the injuries are breaking for this team right now. So once he does come back out there, it'll be a big boost, and we'll see how the Jets can use him differently, because I think they definitely missed him in this game because, Denzel Mims, he had some good blocks, but I don't remember seeing him open that much. And he also had a couple passes he could have caught that he dropped. He had a penalty. So, you know,
Injured.
yeah. So, yeah, he didn't have the best game. He did have some good blocks, especially on the Hall touchdown. But and then Jeff Smith dropped that one pass that Zach actually did squeeze in there pretty good. Other than that, yeah, you definitely missed Elijah Moore in this game. And
Whoa.
that's the thing, regardless of his production, like he's still a threat and he wins on his routes and he demands respect. So to have him back out there, as long as he's, motivated and the team can figure out all that stuff, it would be good.
Okay, off the top of our heads, just because you mentioned a specific play there, what were the good plays and the bad plays from Zach? And I'll help you out here. But I mean, I think that I'm just trying to off the top of our heads without seeing the all 22. I mean, because I think there were a number of solid plays from Zach, and I'm trying to think of the bad plays. He had the miss to Uzama with the pressure on his face rolling left, but he missed him pretty badly.
That was an easy throw. He has to make that.
Yeah, but
no, he has to make it. He has to make
it. He has to make it, but you can't qualify that as an easy throw, Michael. Come on, it's not an easy throw.
He has to make that throw.
Michael, rewatch the throw. I'm not saying yes, he has to make it, but don't qualify that as an easy throw with a defender right in your face rolling left. That's not an easy throw.
All right.
It's not like a layup throw.
All right.
You made it, but
this is not a Zach Wilson excuse podcast.
Yeah, but don't act like that's a screen pass. Like he obviously needs to make that throw, but there's a guy right in his face.
If Mac Jones did that, would you be?
I'm not saying I didn't say it was a good pass.
Just picture Mac Jones in the same shoes.
It's a bad pass, Michael, but don't act like that was like a layup.
It's a layup.
It's not a layup.
It's
not a layup. Rolling left with a guy right in your face.
All right.
I've seen you throw a football. Let's go to okay, what are some of the good passes and some of the bad passes that he had? Good plays, right? I mean,
not going how you thought it would.
He had well, I was hoping you were gonna help me out here. I mean, he had a number.
I remember the one where he squeezed it into Jeff Smith. Other than that, I don't remember anything that was like, all right, he got the job done. He checked it.
Okay, he did have a number of completions that maybe were like easy completions.
He did complete passes.
His short game definitely looks a lot better than last year. I think his ability to maneuver in the pocket. He didn't take too many bad sacks.
I will say, and this is maybe the smallest praise you can give a quarterback, but I will say his screen passes were good in this game.
Yes, so but you know what? To be fair, he sucked at those last year, so you can give him that. I think his maneuverability in the pocket was pretty nice today. Look, I'm not just trying to be a Zach Wilson truther podcast, but let's just present both sides of the argument. You're free to list out bad plays too. I'm not just saying list out good plays. I'm just trying to let's just try to, without rewatching it off the top of our heads, what are the good and bad plays? I even thought and I alluded to it earlier, but the rollout where he made a bunch of guys miss and he threw it back across the middle to Tyler Conklin. It was just short and third down. I thought that was a nice play, even though a lot of people were screaming, just throw it away. But it's all right. I mean, that was very close to being a 25-yard play where everybody's praising Zach. I don't know. He had a nice throw to Barrios. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. Look, it wasn't a good game. Can we think of specific bad plays and specific good plays outside of just saying he was underwhelming?
We just watched the game. I don't have an encyclopedia of knowledge about every single play.
So you're just going to shit on him without having any plays off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's how that works. Well, you don't have any bad plays outside the Uzama miss off the top of your head? And you're going to come on here and shit on him? Come on. There's got to be other bad. I mean, look, I'm not saying
the one to Mims, that was behind him.
There we go. Okay, keep going.
There we go. That throw to Barrios looked like he potentially dropped, wasn't totally accurate, although it was catchable. Do you have any others?
Okay, but the point of this is it's hard to see without seeing what's going on downfield. So for everybody shitting on Zach, I'm not saying that he played well, but it's so hard to judge a quarterback when you can't see what the receivers are doing. And I give CBS a lot of fucking blame because you can't see what's going on downfield. They just give us replays of the offensive line, which we already saw in the initial play. I don't know. I don't think he played that well, but I was hoping that we maybe might have some other plays that we could dissect here of Zach's. We could just go right into the offensive line and then into the defense next. But if we have anything specific plays of Zach that jump out to you, I mean, it's not many that jump out to me. Okay, fine. I thought he had at least a few good plays and a number of bad plays, and it's one of those where you just need to watch the all 22. But the consensus for most people is that he didn't play too well. Offensive line. I mean, once AVT went out, it was a shit show. But what did you think of the O-line's performance?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, there were some plays where maybe something could have been made. I don't know. Other than after AVT went out, it definitely was. I don't know about disastrous. It was pretty bad though, I would say. Run game though, once Hall went out. I mean, Carter finishes with 29 yards and 13 carries. 5 is his long. So it was pretty rough. I mean, they got some of the Barrios end around going. Maybe a couple screens were decent, but yeah, it was not the best offensive line game. But granted, this is a very, very good defensive front on the road.
I mean, at least, yeah. I mean, they didn't look too good. Without that Breece Hall touchdown, I'm curious how that this game would have ended. All right, I guess we can move on to the defense. And Michael, if we're going to talk about the defense, this energy better come up on this podcast because we're talking about a post-game victory podcast. And like, hey, maybe we've gotten spoiled 4 games in a row, but Michael, the history of this podcast is a number of post-game Jesus Christ, post-game losing podcasts. So let's bring the energy here. The defense, Michael, is legit. Last year, incredibly disappointing from this defense. Didn't have too much talent, but still, you were expecting to see maybe a little bit, some of the hints of that Robert Saleh 49ers defense that he was supposedly bringing over. And then I think in this game, in the last few weeks, you've definitely seen that. Clearly, the upgrades in the secondary have helped this defense. I mean, Sauce Gardner is about as good as a top 5 pick as you could have in this league. DJ Reed's about as good as a free agent signing could have, especially at corner. Think of the number of bad cornerback signings. I mean, you think the Chargers wasted on DJ Reed? He's been unbelievable. And Sauce gets all the attention, but DJ Reed and Michael Carter II have been great as well. Jordan Whitehead is, he's been all right again. We have to watch the L22 in this. I know he missed a few tackles, but he's made his presence felt. Joyner, the same thing. But as a whole, Michael, this defense is legit. I mean, look, it's not like the Broncos offense with Brett Ripon or whatever is that amazing or anything, but this defense finally feels like they have some teeth. They can stop them on 3rd and short. They can come up with the big stop in the 4th quarter. They can make that big turnover and get that big sack. And they have an attitude. They have an identity. So what did you think of the defense's performance today?
Yeah, I think regardless of the opponent, it was a really good defensive performance. I mean, I think the best way you can put it is the fact that they had to carry the team in this game, absolutely carry them. They, you get the big rushing touchdown to start the game, but from then on, it was all on the defense. It was punt after punt after punt, and they had to keep coming out there with not a lot of rest and be perfect to win this game. Anything less than what they gave likely wouldn't have been enough. And they did it. They really answered the bell. And I like the adjustments too, because, first drive of the game, or not first, it might have been the second drive, but either way, the touchdown drive the Broncos had in the beginning of the game was their 3rd drive. I'm looking at it now, but they were running the ball right down the Jets' throats, and it looked like, all right, it could get tough if they're going to run the ball that way. But after that, pretty much nothing on the ground for the whole game for the Broncos. So they adjusted well to that. I think they had a good game plan, and it started out not great, of course, with that drive. And there were moments where, you kind of thought maybe the Broncos were going to get something going, but I think the game plan worked. They really dared Ripon to beat them. I think they played a lot of too deep in this game. It was pretty soft. They didn't really stack the box. And to start the game out, that didn't work great. They were playing soft, daring the Broncos run game to beat them. And they did for that one drive, but the Jets stuck with it. And eventually they started to stop the run without allocating that extra help in the box. And then with the too deep coverage and how soft they were playing, a lot of quarters and, just taking away those big plays, they were really able to, again, eliminate those big plays and just make him dink and dunk down the field. And he couldn't do it because he was just having such a bad game. So, yes, it was a bad quarterback, but I think the Jets schemed around that pretty well. And you look at the Broncos numbers offense this season, as bad as they are, this is still tied for their season low in points. So it's, even relative to their standards, still not a great game. And of course they did have a couple missed kicks, so that helped. But overall, the defense had to carry the Jets in this game, and they answered the bell. And number one plus of this defense easily Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. I mean, what a performance by them. And say what you want about the quarterback, but Cortland Sutton he's no joke. And they were just deflecting pass after pass against him. And both of them. And I was saying before this game that the Jets should maybe shadow Sutton with Sauce because he has better size to match up with him. Because Sutton is 6'4", I think 216. He was fourth in the league in contested catches entering this game. So I was telling you that I think they should maybe shadow him with Sauce, but the Jets did not do that, and DJ Reed ended up matched up with him quite a bit, and he was fantastic. He had that deep pass breakup, then he had the huge third down tackle short of the sticks. That little had that little 2-play sequence to force a punt in the second half, and some other great plays in addition to that. So really good game plan from the Jets, good execution by the corners. That duo was fantastic. I mean, combined 6 pass breakups, 3 from each of them. That's awesome stuff, regardless of who you're playing. So really great game from this defense. And the last few games, it's looked like a fully realized version of what this defense can be. And coming into the year, our expectations weren't super high for the defense as a whole. I think we kind of hoped they could be average, maybe pretty good, because we assumed they do have some holes, regardless of some of the peak talent they have at corner, at the D line. But right now, they're just putting everything together. The holes don't look like as limiting as they were prior to the season. The safeties, the last few games have been, if not great, they've been pretty good / very good. Joyner comes up with a pick in this game. He had a huge game against the Steelers. Whitehead as well had some good plays in this game. So that's not as much of an issue. The linebackers are stopping the run well. The defensive line is stopping the run much better than we expected. A lot of that is Sheldon Rankins, who's had a huge bounce back season. So yeah, the holes don't look as big as we thought they would be. And then the stars are living up to their potential. And that all starts with Sauce Gardner. I think he's exceeded expectations, definitely what I had for his rookie year. I think he already looks like the peak version of what I thought he could be. Maybe not even close to that point yet because he's that much potential, but he already looks very close to that with just a weekly touchdown breakups, matching up with great players. He's clutch. He's got attitude. He's got confidence. Okay. It's fun to watch.
Is it just me though? Is he grabbing a little bit on those deep balls? Like it feels like he has the perfect like amount of time to like, I don't know, maybe grab a jersey for like half a second. Like he's able to get away with some contact down the field. What do you think about some of the contact he has down the field? Because I'm worried about him getting penalized because it seems like a lot of those replays he does have a little bit of a fistful of jersey and then he lets it go. What do you think about that? Is that legal? Is that him not getting called? What's going on there?
Maybe he got away with a couple in this game. There's the one deep ball to Judy. He kind of tugged to the shoulder a little bit. And then the 4th down breakup to Sutton in the 4th quarter kind of tugged at the jersey a little bit, but Sutton was also kind of pushing him. So I would say if you're a Broncos fan, it's definitely a penalty. If you're a Jets fan, it's not. But okay, it's probably the best explanation. But no, I mean, I want to say, if they don't call it, it's not a penalty. But then I wouldn't be saying that if, a player on the other team did it. But either way, I think there is something to say for him maybe having a little more leeway to get away with it because of, I think, his size and his length kind of makes it seem like it's a little bit more of, physicality, just guys going back and forth. Whereas a more regular sized corner, maybe it's a little more blatant when they're kind of grabbing. Right. So I think that kind of helps him.
He has like the perfect timing.
Yeah, and there's just the timing, the subtlety to it. Like, yeah, you're grabbing and you're going to get called for it sometimes. He did against Miami. I think he had one against Green Bay too. But so they will call it sometimes, but it's also kind of a little bit of subtlety to do it at the right time. And also he gets his head turned around. I think that's where he earns points from the officials because you look at the Sutton play and yes, he did grab and I've seen less called for penalties, but he gets his head turned around very early. And I think that's really what the officials look for. And I think he buys himself some leeway with that. So it's a little dangerous the way he plays for sure. But right now he's getting away with it more often than not. So the results have turned out to be pretty good. But we'll see if maybe officials start to key in on that. If they do start calling it more frequently, if he adjusts a little bit.
Yeah, I think but like, I guess the point is that he's kind of seemingly a master of that, like last second little bit of contact, maybe grabs his jersey for half a second, but doesn't make it obvious. And gets away with it, a number of times. It doesn't make it obvious. And I think that, like you said, I mean, he's about as good as you could have hoped that he would become. And he's already that, for pretty much the first game that he played as a pro. which is just unbelievable. And it is exciting to think about, okay, how much better can he get, his second season or his third season, how it continues to grow. And then DJ Reed on the other side, like I said, he doesn't get nearly enough love. Him and Michael Carter II are seemingly afterthoughts behind Sauce Gardner, but this defense wouldn't be anything without DJ Reed and without Michael Carter II, because those guys make a number of big plays, and not just breakups, but big tackles. And that's something that's, I think, radiated among the entire team. Is I'm impressed with how good of tacklers that they are on defense. They don't miss too many tackles. I think early in the season they were going for the ball too much. They were trying to punch out the ball, trying to force fumbles. But I mean, man, this Jets defense hits hard, and they wrap up and they stop guys in their tracks pretty much immediately. As I said last week, you're finally seeing the 49ers defense in New York under Robert Saleh, which is encouraging. And I don't know how much fingerprints he has over the defense the last few weeks, or how much of this is Ulbrich, but regardless, you have to be happy if you're a Jets fan with how this defense is playing, because it allows Zach Wilson to develop. It allows this offense to get its shit together when you have a defense that can play like this. Now, when you're playing a different offense, an offense that's not led by a shitty backup quarterback, it might look different. I think next week is a huge test. We'll talk about that a lot more later in the week. But this defense is playing lights out right now. And I think you can't give enough credit to it. I think you would have liked to see maybe the defensive line play a little bit better this game. I don't know if they got necessarily the pressure that I was hoping for, but they made sacks in key spots. The linebacker play has been great this year. The secondary play has been unbelievable this year. And I think you just have to be happy with the Jets defense. I mean, this is what you thought you were getting when you brought in Robert Saleh. And I'll be honest, like this summer, I was a little concerned because the Jets certainly didn't get that last year. And then you're like, okay, how good is Jeff Ulbrich after the first few weeks of the season? It's like, he's a guy that Saleh's going to have to cut ties with. But through the first 7 games, I don't think you could ask for many better defensive performances than the Jets have put up this year, outside of maybe the Cleveland game and a few other spots. But overall, they've been lights out, and especially the last few weeks. Who are some of the studs and duds? I mean, we'll start on the defensive side of the ball, but some of the guys that maybe deserve a special shout out. Obviously, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed deserve a special shout out. But outside of those guys, who are some other guys that maybe stood out to you on the defensive side of the football, and maybe some of the other guys who stood out to you in a negative way on the defensive side of the football?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to start with the linebackers, I think they had a good game. I mean, other than I think a couple times early on, Quincy Williams gave up a couple catches, but other than that, they had really timely tackles, short of the sticks on third down, stuff like that. CJ Mosley and Quan, I think especially, were very good in this game. And by the way, that interception by Mosley, my God, how do you overturn that? How do you overturn that? Where's the evidence?
Oh my God. If they had gotten a first down on that play, I was losing my mind. It seemed like they overturned it, and the fourth down was snapped so fast, and then it was an incomplete that I didn't really get enough time to freak out over it. But Jesus Christ, the refs. I mean, look, the last few weeks we've said this, but the refs in this game were just fucking brutal.
Jets got some nice breaks. I think
towards the end of the game, but I don't know. You're right. Overall, it bounced out.
I still didn't really see any justification for that. And I'm trying to be unbiased too. I really just did not see it. I thought the Zach Wilson play was going to be a fumble, but that one with Mosley, I did not understand. But yeah, linebackers were good. I think Bryce Huff deserves a shout out because, like you said, I think the D-line really wasn't that great in the pass rush in this one. I think the coverage helped them out a lot in this game, or even bailed them out at times. Because there were certainly moments where the pass rush wasn't getting home as fast as you would like on third down situations. I think later in the game they kind of picked it up a little bit more, but there was a lot of coverage helping them out. But I do think Bryce Huff stood out as good in this game. He had a huge hit later on. Forget exactly which play it was. I know one of the key fourth quarter plays he came through with a pretty big quarterback hit. Quinnen, though, I mean, I think does by the standards he had set last week, not quite at that level, but he was very good. The run defense was excellent. He had I believe he had a pass breakup in this game, and he also had the quarterback hit to set up the interception to Joyner. So you love those plays where the pass rush and the secondary work in tandem like that. Front end you get pressure, and then you get a big play turnover behind it. So Quinnen had that. So I think Quinnen had an underrated game. It's not going to get a lot of a lot of hype because it doesn't live up to what he did last week, but it was another very good game. And then, like I said, linebackers were good. Yeah, I think coverage deserves a huge shout out for helping out the pass rush. Wasn't the greatest pass rush game, but when it's all working in tandem like that, things tend to work out.
Yeah, I guess on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, there's not going to be too many studs, but I mean, I think Barrios had a nice game. Seemingly, he makes plays every time he's on the field. I got to be honest here. Um, I mean, Carter, he had a nice few plays. Who are some of the studs and duds on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Barrios.
Greg Zuerlein. Greg Zuerlein.
Let's talk about special teams. Let's skip the offense. How
All
about
right.
Greg the Leg? That's the difference in this game. The way he played versus McManus is that's a difference in this game. Period. I mean, Greg the Leg goes 3 for 3 on his field goals, 1 for 1 in extra points. Kicks were not easy in this game at all, but Greg was able to cut through them. They weren't even close to being misses for the most part, and McManus cost them 4 points. So that's the difference of the game right there.
Oh, yeah.
And Braden Mann obviously had a fantastic game. Couple of touchbacks late, but prior to that, I mean,
I don't know about fantastic. He did have.
Come on, he was good. He was good.
He was all right, but then Mile High Air, he missed. I mean, he had a few touchbacks that you would have wished were down. I mean,
one of them was really close going out to one.
That's true. And then he had that perfect punt.
The perfect one that Eccles downed at the 1 yard line. So he is very.
Did they score a touchdown on the drive, or what happened on the drive? I'm trying to remember.
I think they moved it a few times.
I know they drove. They
got decent yards, but they didn't score.
Is that the one that they missed the field goal? Is that what happened on the drive, or they punt?
Might have been that one.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would have liked overall. I think you would have liked to see a better defensive line performance, but this game was won by their linebackers and their secondary. And also, I think you can blame some of the defensive line performance to the fact that they were playing the run. I mean, they were going too high in the secondary and preventing the big play. And then on the box, they were filling run gaps and they were going after the run. I think you could blame some of that on that. But yeah, I mean, you would have liked to see the defensive line dominate this game a little bit more. I think you would have liked to see, obviously, the offense dominate this game a little bit more. But the fact is, Michael, the Jets are 5-2 and they won this game. And they won a game where they didn't look that good. They won an ugly football game where they didn't play well, where they lost a lot of starters, where they didn't have really much momentum, where they faced a lot of adversity. And look, like, I get the mood right now on this podcast isn't necessarily too high. We try to be optimistic, but I can tell, Michael, you're pretty low energy, and I can tell from looking at Jets Twitter that most Jets fans are kind of bummed right now, and I think most of that is about Breece Hall. But the fact is, Michael, they're 5-2 entering that Pats game. Did you ever think they would be in this position? Seriously,
no.
I mean, did you ever think they'd be 5-2? So exactly, and I think the Jets have a damn good chance ahead of them to beat the New England Patriots at home and improve to 6-2. So you have to like where this Jets football team is. You cross your fingers and you pray for Breece Hall's health. I really hope that it's a sprain or something that he can come back from at some point during the season. But regardless, the Jets do have a very competent backup, and maybe not even a backup, a guy that you thought was going to start at the beginning of this year with Michael Carter, another young running back you can be excited about. So as fun as Breece Hall was, obviously you hope he comes back. And is it a killer? Absolutely. Does it hurt? Absolutely. But the Jets can still win without Breece Hall, is how I feel. And I think that you obviously want to see that big jump from Zach Wilson. You want to see him to continue to get better. I feel like that probably won't happen until after the bye, given that he plays New England and Bill Belichick next week, and then he plays Buffalo the week after that. But then after that bye, they have a number of games where I think you could maybe see the Jets get their passing offense going. I mean, we'll see. I mean, again, we have to watch the L-22 and see how bad Zach was in this game, but I still felt like he did make a number of nice plays. He had that nice little scramble down the sideline. I don't know. I felt like, he obviously wasn't good in this game. You don't want to sugarcoat anything, but I still feel like he had a number of nice plays, and I still feel like he's shown enough this season to the fact where you can believe in him. I mean, through 4 games of Zach's 22 season, Michael, how are you feeling in terms of his development? I mean, again, we know we have to watch Cell 22, but I saw some sentiments on Jets Twitter. And again, by the way, if you're on Jets Twitter during the Jets game, and Michael, I know you're like this, the best thing that I've done this season is I don't look at Twitter during the Jets game, and I'm so much happier. I enjoy the game so much more. It's just a toxic cesspool. And look, like many Jets fans are right about what they're tweeting during the game, but it's just so much so much better to just watch the game without reading that constant negativity and just enjoying a football game. We look forward to these games all year, and the Jets are 5-2. So I'm gonna just enjoy it, even if it's not pretty, even if they don't play well, even if there's questions about the franchise quarterback. I think not looking at Twitter during the Jets games is a great call. But going back to Zach, Michael, I mean, how do you feel for 4 games? I think last week we felt like, okay, he's had 2 good games. I mean, one amazing fourth quarter, one great game against Miami where he didn't light it up, but he still played a great game. And then one mediocre game against Green Bay. Again, we have to see what we feel about this Denver game. But through 4 games, Michael, I mean, how do you feel about his development thus far?
I mean, I think for me, I don't see the overall negative trajectory over these 4 games as being as negative as I think a lot of people are looking at it, because I was looking at replies on tweets and stuff, and people are saying like Zach Wilson is bad. They're saying he's been bad this entire season, but I think this game most likely is going to go down as a pretty bad one once I review it. But I think first 3 games, people are just kind of not giving him enough credit for what he was doing. And we've gone through this a bunch of times already, but Steelers comeback, that was amazing. That was elite quarterback play for 1 quarter when they really needed it. Dolphins game, again, low volume passing, but very efficient, smart, consistent, really good game despite the low volume of pass attempts. Then Packers game last week, not ideal. Didn't look good to watch on TV, but wasn't nearly as bad as I think it looked on TV, because the opportunities just weren't really there for him in terms of separation. Not a good game, below average, not terrible, regardless of the stats. But then you go to this game, and again, we'll see where it kind of lands on that spectrum of between terrible and just below average. We'll see where it lands after we digest it a little bit more, but probably another at least below average game. So I don't think it's ideal what you wanted through 4 games, but at the same time, I think a lot of people are overreacting a little bit to say he's been really bad this season or he's shown no progress. I think those first 2 games showed you a lot. Third game wasn't quite as awful as a lot of people thought. And this game, not ideal either, but overall body of work is, again, not quite where you would like it to be perfectly honest. He has 1 passing touchdown this year, and no matter how you slice it, I don't think anyone would have been thrilled with that. But regardless, I think just from a process standpoint, there are signs of improvement. He's executing those short passes, I think, a lot more smoothly, more accurately. I think the decision making is, in terms of reading the field, I think the decision making is better. I don't see him missing, again, haven't watched this one yet, but I don't see him missing a ton of reads, like, passing on throws he should attempt and things like that. There's decision-making questions in terms of, should he throw that ball away, or should you react to that pressure differently? Or is that a risk you should take? But I don't know if I see a lot of like him passing on an open receiver, or, not seeing a defender who's dropping off the line of scrimmage, or not recognizing the coverage that the defense is playing, things like that, which I think, to go back to the previous quarterback, I think Sam Darnold struggled with a lot and never really improved, not recognizing a blitzer coming in, or not seeing an outside linebacker drop off the line of scrimmage, or, seeing a wide open player in the first read and passing on it, things like that. I see progress from Wilson in those areas. I really do. So I think the process is improving, and hopefully better results come with that. He can get more comfortable, throw with accuracy more consistently, throw with better placement more consistently. And like we talked about earlier, have better balance in those improvisational situations, in those reacting to pressure situations where, sometimes go make a play, sometimes play it safer. So better balance in those situations can be achieved. So there's still a lot of areas to improve, but I think we're seeing a more stable quarterback than the one we saw in the first half of last year, and then a lot of young Jets quarterbacks we saw. I mean, he did have his 3rd straight game with no interceptions or no turnovers at all in this game. And, granted, there have been some reckless plays. There have been some reckless plays for sure, but I do think he is earning that. I think he's earning that, just in the sense that he's not making those obvious turnover plays where he's just throwing an interception right in someone's breadbasket. There haven't been many of those. So I think
he did have that really close one that that was dropped by Simmons that was ruled
Yes,
a
but on the
pass
replay,
interference.
you could see that Barrios was trying to break out, and here I am. I'm
But was he breaking
now.
out or was he breaking in?
I think he was breaking out because you can kind of see he was trying to get that right arm over. He was trying to bring it over the top. I think he's going to get out, and then he started getting held. So then the time was kind of passing at that point. I think he started
But if he was
improvising.
getting
Then he
held,
broke in.
don't
But
you
I
think
think
if
he
he
was
was
trying to
getting
get
held,
out.
he would have? I'm the most optimistic person on this podcast, Michael, between the two of us. But don't you think that he would have broken out if he was getting held? He seemed like he was getting held and then he broke it in and was like, all right, well, if you're getting held, you're going to sell it. Don't you think he would have? I don't know. Maybe
Just
you're
the
right.
fact that Wilson threw to that spot too makes me think that he was trying to break out. I don't see why
That's
else
true.
he would
That's
throw it
true.
there.
That's
I'm
true.
trying to give him the benefit of the doubt this
That's
time
true.
around.
That's true.
But
That's
yeah,
true.
I would say that's my overall assessment. Definitely not ideal. Like, let's not sit here and sugarcoat it. I think it can be a lot better. And we all know he's capable of much better. But at the same time, I don't think it's been as atrocious as a lot of people are making out to be. I think he's probably been like a 22nd to 20th kind of starting quarterback this year in a league where being a good quarterback doesn't take as much right now as it does in most years. It's a wide open quarterback totem pole right now. It's a very weird spot in the quarterback hierarchy. A lot of fluctuation across the league. There's a lot of elite quarterbacks falling off and not really many people replacing them. So scoring's down, passing stats are down. So considering that, I really think he's probably somewhere in that below average range right now, 20th to 24th, which is an improvement over last year, where I think if you look at his entire rookie season as a whole, he's probably bottom 3. So I think he's taken a decent leap. And right now it's been enough for them to win with good defense, good run game. Sometimes good run game in this one, but not for the most part. On one play, it was a good run
How
game.
do we feel Ogbuehi played? I mean, I think he's the guy who filled in for AVT at right tackle. I mean, it's hard to know on the rewatch, but it did seem like a lot was getting through today.
Yeah, not to say I focused on him specifically for much of the game, but it did feel like that right side had some pressure coming off of it. I do feel like that right side was giving up more than that left side, just noticing it, watching it at first. We'll see how it holds up, but didn't seem great. I think he had a big penalty at one point as well. So yeah, it wasn't pretty, but I mean, that's my Zach Wilson assessment. We should all expect more, absolutely. But I think at the same time, there's a little bit of overreaction to exactly how bad it's been. I don't even think it's been looking at the whole body of work of 4 games. This game, I think, was likely bad. I don't think it's been awful considering what he did the first 2 games. So we'll see if he can bounce back, generate some more consistency. They're going to need more from him going forward with Breece Hall out, potentially with offensive line injuries, with maybe AVT missing some time. We'll see how that goes. They're going to need some more from him. And we're definitely going to learn a lot more from him these next few weeks, especially with some of the teams you have coming up. I think the Patriots are going to be tougher than the Broncos.
Yeah.
The Bills goes without saying that you're going to have to put up some points if you want to compete with them. They're coming out of the bye. You play the Pats again. You play the Vikings. So we're going to see these next few games what he's made of. They're going to need him to not necessarily carry them, but they're going to need him to do a lot more than he has. So we'll see if he's up to that test.
How does no Breece Hall change this offense though in your eyes? I mean, can they run the same offense with Michael Carter? Or do you think they're gonna have to lean on Zach a lot more?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because I think like Breece Hall gives you that ability to have a 1-play drive to start the game that could change everything. Yeah, I mean, Carter, it's the elusiveness with him. It's the breaking tackles. It's the turning 2 yards into 6. It's the turning 0 into 3. I think that's what makes him really good. And I think that type of ability is conducive to being a good, lead back, a guy who you can rely on throughout the game. So we'll see if he can do that. I think he's probably maybe a little bit more reliant on run blocking than Hall is. Even though he's a good, like I said, good at breaking tackles, good at breaking that first contact. It's just in terms of getting those yards overall throughout the game, like Hall can take that one hole you give him and get 70 yards out of it. And that's plenty of production. That could, again, like we saw in this one, can be enough to help you for the whole game. Whereas Carter's probably not going to make that 70-yard run. So you would and we saw in this game, as elusive as he is, blocking wasn't great. He wasn't able to get much out of it. So I think he might be a little bit more reliant in the sense that if you're going to get those big plays, it's got to be I think he requires a bigger hole to get some of those big plays compared to Hall. But I think his elusiveness still makes him able to makes him a guy you can lean on throughout the game and can help you get those consistent gains you want to, get good first, second down gains, create a medium second down, create a short third down. I think he's still capable of that. Like, we can't forget how good he was at points last year.
He was
A lot of us
damn
were on
good
board.
last year.
A lot of us were on board with him being RB1 of the future when last season was over. So this is still a very good running back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Breece Hall injury is a big deflation. I mean, I think outside of this, and I didn't really want to say this on the podcast because I was worried something like this would happen, but outside of the Zach Wilson injury at the beginning of the season and obviously losing some of their offensive tackles, I felt like the Jets injury luck was pretty good. Obviously, that shit changed today, but I still feel like the running game can be successful with Michael Carter and Ty Johnson. Look, Breece Hall is one of those guys that you could see being one of the top running backs in the league. So losing a guy like that really fucking sucks. But having a guy like Michael Carter is a damn good consolation prize. And I think he's a guy that, could, like you said, can still keep you in the game. You can still run the ball with. I mean, how many times have we seen San Francisco just put, which this offense is based off of, this offense scheme is based off of, put no name guy after no name guy after no name guy and put up 120 yards each game. And Michael Carter's not a no name guy. He can make guys miss in the open field. He can create plays even when the blocking is not there. So Michael Carter's still a damn good running back. I'm curious to see what they'll do with the rest of the depth chart if Breece Hall is out, how much we'll see of Ty Johnson, if they'll bring somebody in, if they'll sign somebody back, if they'll make a trade, who knows what they'll do. I still really hope that the Breece Hall injury isn't a torn ACL. We'll see. The fact that he even said it's an ACL and that he was out immediately is probably not a good sign. So not something to get your hopes up about, but I don't know. It's weird, Michael. They've won 4 in a row. We're 5-2. Why are we down? Why are we depressed right now? Is it just the Breece Hall? Is it just the fact that they didn't look too good today?
I don't know. I guess it's just the outlook, like, yes, we're 5-2, but then you think about, the guy who you were riding to these past few wins, the last 3 wins, you were riding on the back of Breece Hall, and now you're not going to have him. And the quarterback who's going to have to make up for it isn't, he hasn't really shown a whole lot. So obviously we're all confident in him and his talent, but it's, the road ahead is going to be a lot different. The formula that's been working is you're not going to be able to rely on it anymore. So I think that's kind of where that juice comes from. It feels like the road ahead is a lot different than what got them to this point.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets will certainly have to. I mean, look, the second half of the season, and we're not really at the second half yet. We'll still have to get the bye before we can make this point, but it'll come down to Zach Wilson. I think they'll still be able to run the ball with Michael Carter. They'll get Elijah Moore back, so presumably their passing offense will be a little bit better. And that's going to come down to Zach's development. And look, is that maybe scary? Is that disappointing that they don't have Breece? Yes, but it's still exciting. This is still a young, fun team to watch on Sundays. And so, like, I just think I'm not going to look at Twitter during Jets games. I'm enjoying watching these games, even when they don't play that well. Even this game, they didn't play that well, but it's still like, I don't know. It's a fun young team that believes in themselves, and they pulled out the win in the fourth quarter. I mean, they're a fourth quarter team. Absolutely, Michael. I don't know. I'm having fun this season. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean,
You
I
don't
agree.
seem like you're having that much fun.
I'm not bouncing up and down right now, but I'm still having fun.
Do you want to go back to 2020, Michael, when we were talking about at this point in 2020 on this podcast, Michael, we had like PJ Clark on and we were talking about draft prospects and he threw out Zach Wilson. We were like, who the hell is that? And we're talking about Trevor Lawrence and how they just lost to like, I don't even know who the Jets are. The Dolphins. I think they got blown out by the Dolphins with Joe Flacco in 2020 this week. So something around there. But it's a good time, Michael. It's a good time to be a Jets fan. Let's bring the energy up. Come on. I had a nice JTS chant in a bar in New York City with Jets fans. That was cool. Got somebody who recognized the podcast. That was cool.
Yeah. Tell me about that. You haven't told me.
Well, I guess I'm a celebrity now, Michael. I guess I'm a Jets influencer. You're the guy who got recognized. When I went to the game with you, you got recognized like 5 times. So you're the real influencer here, Michael. No, I didn't really get recognized as much as I was like, hey, I run a podcast called Clear Your Jets. And he was like, oh, I listen. That was all it was.
That's cool.
Shout out. All right, I guess.
No, I agree with you though on not looking at. That's a change I'm going to make going forward. I'm going to shut my phone off.
Don't look at Twitter. My advice to everybody listening to this podcast: don't look at Twitter. It's just a fucking cesspool of negativity during the game. It's not. It doesn't make your like watching the game.
It does not enhance your experience.
No, it makes it so much worse. The only reason I look at Twitter occasionally I'll tweet something during the game, and then I'll try to see some injury news. But just scrolling through the constant, like, hundreds of tweets of just negativity, same old Jets. They won't pull this out. Zach Wilson's a bust. You kill me. Breece Hall's hurt. Like, it's just like, all right, let me just watch the game. Can we look forward to this all, like, for 9 months, 8 months, whatever. And then it's finally here. And then we're just going to spend it bitching and moaning. They're 5-2, Michael. They're 5-2. Come on. They've set themselves up.
Also, just because I feel like I contribute to it, and I just kind of make myself.
Did you delete that one tweet I called you out on? Because I didn't see it. Did you delete it? The one where I was like, you tweeted like, throw the ball away.
Yeah,
and I was like,
did.
and I DM'd you. I DM'd you. I was like, he made 5 guys miss, and then he threw the ball away. What are you talking about? You packed.
No, but I mean, like, I just make myself look dumb because, like, I'm an analytical person. I like to, digest everything, rewatch it, research it, and all this stuff. And then I come out game days and I put out posts like that, and I just look like a moron. So, like, I don't think about anything. I'm a very terrible game watcher, so I feel like I should internalize that, keep it to myself, and not text it to people, and be a moron on the internet. So I maybe going forward, I'm gonna just try to stay off Twitter and everything.
We have a no texting policy between Michael and I during the games. I don't text Michael during the games because it ruins my experience. How did you handle this game? I'm almost scared to ask you because you were tweeting a bunch of shit, and then you went radio silent, and then I texted you like, "Hey, let's do the podcast." No response, and then I had to call you, and like, "All right, fine, we'll do the podcast."
I mean, I was once like all the bad stuff started happening in the second quarter, like, there were all those injuries, then they were trailing. I was like, even when they like had that drive at the end of the half, and then they got the field goal to take the lead, like, I was not cheering at all. I was just completely deflated. Then in the second half, later in the game, I got back into it, and I have some loud reactions recorded on my phone. But I did get back into it by the end. But second quarter, I was pretty deflated, and that was when I started checking out. That was when my silence started.
Oh, but did you make it through this game? Did you get hyped when they won, or were you just kind of like, yay?
I did.
Fine.
No, yeah, like I said,
right,
in the fourth quarter, I got checked back in. I have some good reactions.
Will we be graced with any of these recordings from the game? Did you record yourself this game?
Yeah, I have my reaction to the last play. Maybe I haven't listened to it yet.
Do you want to play it? Do you want to play, or is it going to be? Do you know it to do that?
I might sound like a maniac.
Okay, that's good though.
All right, keep talking. I'm gonna try and bring it up.
I hear it though. Okay,
I gotta find the part.
Okay, I'll stall. I was gonna ask you about the coaching performance. I'll say this: like, I think that the clock management at the end of halves and at the end of the games is certainly improved. Like, I'm not freaking out anymore at the end of the halves about the Jets mismanaging games or anything. Like, they clearly have that shit down. The end of half points were big to take the lead. Okay, all right, you sound normal. You still not? Is that the end of the game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You sound normal enough. There's a few other ones from last week that I was just like concerned for your mental health, but oh my God. All right. Well, I guess that's it today. I mean, is there anything else? It feels like this was a short one, but I guess we hit an hour. I mean, look, the Friday ones are normally the long ones. So if you're looking for a long pod, tune in on Friday. But is there anything else, Michael, you wanted to bring up? I mean, I guess the coaching performance, is there anything you wanted to touch on there? Is there any other topics you want to dive into before we get out of here? The people love the long podcast. We had a guy tweet us last week. I should pull up the Twitter, but it's probably buried under a bunch of notifications. So my bad. But, he was saying, look, we were 90 seconds short of a 2-hour pod on Friday. And when we get to that point, Michael, we just have to channel our inner Robert Saleh that we've only hit 40% of what we're capable of. We have 60% to go. So, Michael, I think at this point we have 60% to go, which means we have another 2 hours and 15 minutes left in us, or hour and 15 minutes left in us, or whatever. Not good at math. Sorry. Any other thoughts though on this game?
So do we ditch the All Blacks next week and go to white on black?
No, they're not going to do that.
You thought long and hard about it.
I was thinking about that too, but I don't think we need our fucking lucky pants. And also, we're still wearing those pants.
No, you're still wearing those pants. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still wearing the pants. I like it.
Maybe that's it. I think it's the pants. It doesn't matter what jersey it is.
I'm so excited for the All Blacks. Like, obviously, I want the Jets. I'm more excited about the game, but
I'm more excited about the jerseys,
the helmets.
Oh yeah, and that
it's gonna
the uniforms.
Yeah.
The game is like Yeah, like
This
it's
is
cool
this
to
is what this
watch.
podcast was until the team was playing competitive football. It was just a fashion podcast. Very excited to see these alternate helmets. I'll be at this game. Michael, this will be at this point, I'll have gone to every single game. I don't know if I'm going to subject myself to that Bills game at home, but outside of the Falcons preseason game, I'll have been to every game this year, which is pretty damn cool. I'm excited about that. I mean, I'm spending a ton of money on these fucking tickets, but it's been worth it. Yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, we'll be breaking down the Pats game on Friday. We'll watch the All-22. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the Broncos game we want to touch on. It feels like we're a little low energy today. I
I
guess
don't know. Let's get hyped. The Jets won
yes,
six
Michael.
games
Yes,
from
Michael. Come
2020,
on.
21. Six
Come
games
on.
in 2 years. The Jets are 5-2.
Yes, there we
That's
go.
what I'm talking about.
Got some hype there. I gotta not yell before my neighbor starts banging on the wall like last week. All right, I guess we're done.
5-2 New York Jets.
5-2 New York Jets, Michael. Come on. Look at us. 5-2. We're like halfway until playoffs. So
Look at us.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if they beat they beat the Pats next week, Michael, and they're 6-2 heading into that Bills game. First of all, if they can be just even competitive in that Bills game, I'll be happy. But if they're 6-2 entering that bye, Michael, there's no reason they won't make the playoffs.
I mean, right now they have a whole 2-win cushion.
I'm worried
for the wild card.
I'm worried about that Geno Smith game at the end of the year for some reason. I'm worried about that Geno Smith revenge game. So they better have clinched it by then.
The Jets with this are guaranteed to have a winning record for at least 4 weeks from now. They'll still have a winning record at worst, and a 500 record for at least 5 more weeks at worst. So that's pretty cool.
All right, I guess we're done. Is that it? And, I guess the only one other topic we could talk about Elijah a little bit. Any other thoughts about Elijah and his situation, and maybe the reaction?
I mean, I guess my question for you would be, if he does play, is there going to be any sort of, reservations about, rooting for him, and are you going to be maybe a little more hesitant? He catches the ball, how you react to it? How's that going to feel?
Fuck? I'm a cheer. I like the guy who taped out the 00 and the R on his Elijah Moore jersey, so it just said me on the back. I liked that. I thought that was funny. Elijah has to make up some PR with these Jets fans, because I
got a $20 jersey in my closet.
I bought an Elijah Moore shirt, bro. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna ever wear it, but I have an Elijah Moore shirt. I think that it is a cool shirt. I think that he just needs one big game, and then I think people will forgive him. But I'll stick by what I said on Friday. I think this situation will be resolved. I mean, it's not ideal. It's definitely a bad look for him. I think he knows that. But as I said to Robbie, this wasn't a rational thing that he did, and so that kind of gives me hope that this thing will be patched over. If I at least kind of saw his side of things, and not to say that I don't agree with him that he should be targeted more, but his side of like requesting a trade, he's done with the Jets, it would be a different situation for me. But it just was so stupid and made no sense that I just think that I don't know. I think it'll work itself out. I think the Jets will patch it over with Elijah. Elijah will have to say something to the team. Elijah will put something on Twitter. Elijah will have a good game. The Jets fans will forgive him. We'll move on. That's at least the mindset I'm entering this weekend. And also Elijah, I guess he's happy about Breece Hall's ACL tear. I mean, I guess that's what he wanted. I guess he wanted Breece Hall to tear his ACL so he could get more touches. I don't know. What a shitty situation. But
I was thinking maybe when Breece Hall got hurt, maybe it was PFF George. He has a Breece Hall voodoo doll. He was tired of hearing about it, so he pulled it out. It could be a possibility.
All right, yeah, I guess we're done out of here. All right, follow CUAJ Pod on Twitter. Follow Michael Nania at Michael. What? Follow Michael at Michael_Nania. Follow myself, Ben W. Blessington. Go to jetsxfactor.com. Best place to go for Jets content. Subscribe, rate, review, iTunes. Subscribe to the Jets X Factor YouTube. I think that's it. Michael, last words until Friday. Hit us.
Jets are 5-2. What more needs to be said?
Jets are 5-2. What more needs to be said? Enjoy your week. Another victory Monday. Don't be
Best
spoiled.
road record
Don't
in the
be
NFL.
spoiled. I know this game wasn't perfect. I know there's plenty to nitpick, but it's 4 in a row. They're 5-2. Do you remember what last year felt like? Do you remember what the year before felt like? Just enjoy it. Another victory Monday.
And the year before that. And the
And
year
the year
before that.
and yeah, and the
before
fucking
that.
decade before that. They're 5-2. Enjoy it. The Jets are on top, baby. What are they in the AFC? I mean, the wild card, whatever. But
Second best record.
Second best
AFC.
record in the AFC, baby. Who saw that shit coming? All right, enough swearing. I'm out of here.
Also, this is, in my time watching teams, because I only really started in 2011. So this is the best start.
Fake fan.
How's that? I've been through the worst. No one has seen a higher percentage of non-playoff seasons than I have. That makes me the realest fan.
I guess that's true, but I got in. I mean,
even the old school fans, like from the 80s, like you guys have seen plenty of good seasons.
You're aging yourself, Michael. I mean, look, I technically have been a Jets fan since birth. I kind of remember some Jets fans with like Pennington when I was a kid, but the year that I really got into it was the Favre year. Like that was the year I was like dialed in, watching every single game, screaming and crying. Good times. All right, well, let's hope they can get back to that. Oh my God. All right, 5-2, baby. Who saw that shit coming? Enjoy the week, everybody. We'll be back on Friday. Follow us at CYJ Pod. Everybody have a great week. Jets win, baby. Celebrate it. I don't know what else to say. Pray for Breece Hall.